Hello, Planet Sewers. Quick reminder, I will be live streaming a week from today at 8 p.m. Central. Hello, Ruby. For Kangathon. So make sure you check out all the other amazing creators that are going to be taking part in raising awareness and feeding animals over at the Kango Wildlife Ranch and Cheetah Preserve. Ruby has been so quiet today, but as soon as I start talking, she feels like she needs to join in. So we are continuing today with our elephant that we started last week. The last thing I'll mention about Kangathon is the Zoolittle episodes have started between my channel and Ravenscar Gaming. So if you want to check those out and get some more information about what Kangathon is about. So I am recreating the sunshades that they have on this corner for the elephants. They have a different color theme going with red, white, and blue. I wish they, in the game, had another triangle shape. This triangle often makes things a little wonky. I don't think it is the type of triangle I need. I'm trying to think of what kind of triangle. I have a math degree, and all that knowledge has poofed. But anyway, equilateral, isosceles. I think that one's isosceles and not equilateral. But anyway, so I did the best I could at recreating what they had cloth-wise. So I used just an arrangement to get the feel for what they had covered over here. And everything was solid. So just changing the colors on both parts to the same color, even though that little Africa design still kind of shows up in the blue and the red, but that's okay. So once I got this side situated, I went ahead and copied on both sides that support, which I'll remove off of some because I want to make sure that the African elephant can actually make it over here and get under some of this. So I used the new Africa pack. They have a rope set in there that does have a smaller option. So I was really trying to connect this in so I could get rid of that post in the middle. I ended up just extending those knots out to give a little more length to get them to fit. If you're not looking too closely, it works. Later on, I do just kind of create a straight one out of the knots just to kind of keep the same look. I don't remember if they have a straight one for that Africa rope or if they're all curved. I do know they have multiple sizes. They have a 1 meter, a 2 meter, and a 4 meter. Sometimes I wish there was also that 3 meter, but you could build it yourself between the 1 and the 2. So I was adding in those supports on the inside so I could hopefully not have troubles copying that over and getting it to the other side. And then adding in those ropes. I was trying the other size. It was too long, too short, almost right. It's almost like a little children's tale there. But anyway, I did the same thing right there. Just added in a few more knots on the end so that I could get those connected in. Then they had some triangle shapes going over here. Really what they had is kind of a square with triangles coming off of it. Just some random shape cloths covering over here. So I just recreated using these squares and the triangle best I could, trying to hold the color theme that I could see from Google Earth. So mine has more dramatic corners than what I saw in the images from Google Earth. Fine-tuned, moving. I understand why they have the arrows at that point. It makes it a lot easier when you're connecting multiple ones together. And it also is the snap point. So if I let it connect on its own, it will snap on those little grommets just about. Doesn't always pick the right rotation. I could turn rotation off and do it that way, see what it does. But I didn't do that here. I just went with how it connected, or just copied them to keep them at the same level and moved them around. I decided I would use those little knots just to show that they are connected, and that's how they're tied in. This was actually one big piece instead of a bunch of little ones. I just went with go ahead and put some little knots on there so that there's support. They're not just hanging out up in the air. Something I find sometimes when I'm doing plants, I'll have plants in the air when I don't have a line to surface on. So right there, I did decide I'll just use the rectangular sunshade, and then I hated myself for not getting rid of that triangle first. I really struggled to get that one out of there because they were so close in height. And then that way I could just use all the little knots to show that they're tied together, cover up the grommets and the corners. And then I decided right there, it looked a little funny with the little curve, and that's when I started just making straight knot ropes so that they had the same color, and then I can control the length. So they have some real fancy rope work going on in this enclosure for these elephants. I used to actually race sailboats, so it does remind me of some knots we used to make for fun. I don't remember the names of them anymore, but I know, like when you tie a noose, they have a real thick part right there made out of knots, and then it slides through. And you could use kind of a noose knot to do that if you wanted. It'd be complicated. Bowling would probably be better. But anyway, enough about knots. We're playing Planet Zoo. And then trying to get those other little covers in. It was a little difficult to get these to line up where the corners would kind of meet the other corners, and then try to get it to hit at a spot that made sense. So in that one, I just kind of lowered it down and hoped the knots would kind of make sense. I doubt too many people, guess-wise, are going to be really looking up there. So it is what it is. I think overall, from the aerial view, it does have the same look and feel, and that's really what I was going for, more so than realism versus game in real life here. So we just have some crazy knots going on to connect those, which, you know, somebody might really do if they don't have knot tying knowledge. A couple of more of these sunshades to go, and we have some white ones that are going to come out from right there to cover out a little bit that way. I thought it was going to be white. Maybe I stuck with red. And then when I made this, I was like, oh, I could have made a really big triangle had I been thinking about it. I guess I didn't learn my lesson from making the sunshade out of these same shapes for the seal, aka really they're sea lions in the Houston Zoo exhibit. But anyway, I decided I would use that little shape to kind of connect into there. I really wished I had enough space to go ahead and put that last one right there so it would be a full triangle instead of a trapezoid, but it works. And then the last part we have for this is just to add in all the ropes that are going to connect these, and I do add in some support in the front because it definitely would need it unless you were tying this into the trees. But it didn't look like that's what they had done. The images were actually a little conflicting. The Google Earth had the colorful sunshades, and the walkthrough had different sunshades. When you actually go to the POV, like the street POV where they walk through the zoo, the sunshades were different. I really liked these in the colors, so I went with this. I don't remember, I should have checked my pictures that I took from when I went to the zoo last month, but I don't remember what they actually had currently at the zoo. But this is what I went with. I'm going to extend these out and use the straight knot rope, so to speak. And I learned something that I didn't notice before. I always struggle with getting things lined up, especially with these kind of items where it doesn't make sense in the group, for me anyway, where the game places the X, and it's obviously shooting for the middle of this object, which I've noticed that, but I don't know why it didn't occur to me until today to slide these straight pieces all the way back to where they're originating and line up that arrow so that I can spin them and spend less time getting them to end up in the right place on the other end. So that was kind of an aha light bulb moment for me this morning, because I really have struggled in the past where certain items, even in the game, their natural spot for the advanced move arrow is in the middle and not on the end, depending, I guess, on how the item was designed to be used. So anyway, that was my aha moment, was I have really been struggling, and I really didn't have to sometimes. I could have just used those arrows and aligned it like I just did right there, where the arrow points directly out of the item, and I can spin and then drag it back out. So that made that a lot easier when I figured it out, instead of small nudges all over the place. I did struggle with this one a little bit, probably just the angle that I was at. I had a hard time seeing where I needed to go, so I went ahead and stretched that rope all the way to the end, and then pulled it back, spun it, and then slid it back over. And then we're gonna put a little bit of rocks in here and give that water feature that they have for these elephants a little more decoration instead of just boring ground. That is kind of how it is in the Houston Zoo. It does look a little more obviously man-made and not as natural looking, but I went for more of a natural look than the man-made look, and I also really didn't want to take away too much of their ability to get in here and close to the walls. I did have to be careful with the rocks to make sure I didn't take away their ability to go through this feature right here. Sometimes rocks can really disrupt how the animal moves through their habitat, so I did double check. I'm not sure if the traversable area is different for the male or the female, but I always picked the male. He's the biggest, so I figure if he can make it through there, then the smaller elephant can make it through there, because they have, for these elephants, a very significant size difference. It almost looks like a baby. And then right here, it was almost like they were protecting this tree from the elephants, and they had a little rock feature, and it was raised up a little. So I went ahead and added a little more terrain work, raised up the ground right there, gave them a little hill that they have that I could see from the ground image. And the next thing we're building is another sunshade. This sunshade is a different theme, and I think it's the same sunshade theme that's in the corners in the walkthrough through all of the elephant habitats when you walk through the zoo in Google Earth. So maybe they took the red, white, and blue. There we go. They took that one down and replaced it with these. And it did have in its design a weird support structure. There was only one triangle beam on each side, so I went ahead and copied that. Although when I got it into the video editing, I do realize I made a mistake in how it's where those triangles are. They should have been aimed down the short side, not the long side. I can't remember how I did them, but it's okay. I just left it that way. I'm not going to go back and fix that. I really struggled trying to get these to match up. These arrows were not in any orientation that was helpful to me. Probably how the game was rotating the item. I probably should have turned that off. No, I had it off. Maybe I should have turned it on. But I used the edges to line them up and then slide it down and then spin them around, and then pull each side in so that they match. And then I ended up using the little end caps that they have, just so they would have a finished end. And then putting in that last little support will be next that I was talking about a minute ago. Yeah, these didn't rotate the way that I thought that they would, so I just went with it. And they have this over here close to where they do. They have a little rinse off that they do with elephants every day. I think it was at 10 a.m. So they have one way back there and then one right here over the little feeding area. So now I'm going to work on the other elephant habitat a little bit. We're gonna make sure the elephants can't get out while I'm working on it, so I can get them out of their boxes. And then we're going to start with the terrain and a water feature that they have for them. There's a really large swimming pool for them, and when we went to visit on our Houston Zoo visit, the elephants really had a good time in there. It was really fun to watch them swimming. It was actually really hilarious. They do have a nice little water feature over there. So we'll have to make some other changes. So I didn't want to get too deep into that. So that's really all we're going to do today in the video once that part's over. I just wanted to get that water feature in so I could build around it. The paths kind of go a different way than how I already have them laid out, and so I do move the barriers to kind of represent that. And where I've taken the pathway is where they have kind of a deck, and they actually have some seating over there. So once I get all of this done, that's what I'm going to work on for the next episode, is getting this little area, the walkthrough, and I guess the little stadium seating that they have on the deck right there, so you can sit and watch the elephants. That's the next part. So I really wanted to just get this right with what they had in the pool, and it does have a lot of rock work that I'm going to need to do, and I feel like I've done a lot of rock work the last couple of days. So I just kind of set the outline. I also wanted to make sure the elephants could get in here before I really made it too far with the rock work. It actually looks more man-made than with rocks. It was actually some kind of colored, I think, concrete that they have going down there. But I didn't see any concrete pieces that would really do the job in the game. So I went ahead and chose just to use those flat rocks. That does give it kind of that man-made look. It's repetitive, so that I didn't want to use plaster. That just didn't seem believable to me going under the water. But it did have a specific kind of color. It wasn't just the plain concrete. I could have used concrete floors, but I did not want to. The ones I was looking at, maybe I didn't have the filter just right, but they all were on the grid, and I wanted to work with pieces that were non-gridded. So those are the decisions that I made. They do have a really neat little fountain, and I did struggle to kind of recreate it. It is not an exact recreation at all. I just kind of went for the shape, and I tried a couple of different ideas to get this inset kind of carved out area that they have on the little water feature, I guess statue is what you call it. And once I got it finished, I realized it really wasn't square. It was more rectangular. So I probably could have used a little different approach, but I'd already had it pretty much built. So I stuck with the square and went with that. So here I'm trying to get that little indentation where they have what looks like a little tree in the pictures, but I just used something from the new DLC to put in there and kept it the same color scheme that I chose for this little guy. I also was trying different stuff for the top, and I was a little annoyed because certain pieces that are also 2 meters, like this guy, would stick out. So it also kind of changed my idea on how I was going to build this. And so it ended up a little taller than it actually is in real life. But I was happy with how it came out. It looks really good. And I was able to actually make it a fountain. So I was excited about that too. I thought these came out really cute. Also, I'll probably throw them up on the workshop later today. And if there's anything else you'll see in my videos that I haven't put on the workshop, don't be afraid to ask. I'm more than happy to share items that I've built on the workshop. Some things may not work real well, like for instance the natural encounter building. I did not share that one. It will have a lot of advanced pathing to be able to set it up inside. From moving it, I can tell you it is a real pain. I still haven't finished setting it up yet. I need to go back in there and do that tunnel, and I'm pretty sure it's gonna probably be a little lower than I actually made it originally. So anytime a blueprint has a tunnel in it, you do have to recreate that tunnel on the other end, and it's a little tricky. I discovered that with my otter entrance. I had to go back and change the blueprint so that people could actually do the tunnel. So here we are. I've got those 2 little decorative statues. I'm not sure what you'd call them, pillars. On the back side of these, they did have who donated, I guess, funds to have this built for the elephants. When I first tried the water feature, I went with some rapids, but they were a little too extreme. Here I was just trying this out, and then I found the jet stream, used that, and decided that looked way more believable. So I end up taking those rapids out. I like how they fall straight down, the rapid does, but they kind of spurt in a weird way around the fountain pillar. So I end up just taking those out and putting just the jet streams. And then I remembered, oh yeah, I gotta make sure these elephants can get in here. So my first thought was I'll use rocks and then create stairs down, because that's kind of how it looked from the angle that I was looking at in Google Earth. But then when I looked at it from a different angle where I had built this, I realized they do just have kind of a ramp going in and then kind of a stair step down around the curved part. So I grabbed that stamp tool and made them a land ramp. They couldn't get in at first, but just a little bit of smoothing and they were able to get in. The water does go back a little further than it actually does in real life, but I'm just going to leave it that way. And the water's really blue, So I chose that tropical blue for that water because it is more of like a, man-created area with treated water. And then they actually have 2 of these guys. I was zooming in there to make sure that they were included with those water things. I didn't want to redo that. I wanted the whole thing to copy. And then I realized my little decorations over here needed to move, so change that up. This week I didn't walk through, so enjoy the cinematics. And next week I will hopefully finish up the elephants. And for the rest of this week, schedule-wise, I will have franchise episode 2 coming out on Tuesday. The rest of the week will be dedicated to Kangathon, Saturday the 23rd at 8 p.m., the live stream of the Zoolittle tour. And then we will also keep the Houston Zoo episode, but I will be skipping what I would normally do on Thursday, and that video will come out the following Thursday, and that's going to be part 2 of the white rhinoceros. Thank you so much for watching today. I hope you have a great day, and may the RNG odds be ever in your favor.